Emerald Planet International Foundation. That's something new, right?
No, we've had that for a long time. Yeah, you get it every week. It's on all your emails.
Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Emerald Planet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the Emerald Planet, Dr. Sam Lee Hancock.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States on a week-to-week basis, looking around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we go towards 2050 and possibly 2 billion new people on the planet, not only do we have to provide the basic infrastructure, the food, the fuel, and the fiber, but also the jobs, and at the same time to protect the environment. And sitting right beside me is a good friend who comes on Emerald Planet on a fairly regular basis, actually. This is Charles. He goes by Chuck D. Vollmer. He's the author and founder of Jobonomics. And the Jobonomics, and you've added a new twist to this, National Grassroots Movement. So welcome.
Well, thank you.
Always glad to have you here.
It's glad to be back.
Looking at this, and I'm going to kick this off, this is one of the things that you and I have been talking about for a long time, is that you're really looking at 20 million new jobs by 2020. You're looking at small scale businesses as well as jobs, but at the same time you keep tying the environment into this, and you've been doing this naturally for a long time that I've known you, but yet some people say, you know, jobs at any cost, heck with the environment, but you're always saying the environment and the protection of it brings new jobs. Talk about that, and then we'll get into Jobonomics itself.
Yeah, I would say more than environment, green jobs. We look at how do you fill the 7 million open jobs today, and how do you fill the 20 or 30 that are 20 million or 30 million that's coming down the pike? Bulk of that 20 or 30 million are in the digital economy. And we'll talk about that today. But there's probably 20 or 30 million, and those are green jobs. You know, when you're talking about internet-based, network technology-based, those types of things, they're green jobs.
And urban agriculture.
Yeah, we have a number of things. We have urban agriculture. We have an urban mining, more in the recycling. We have a renewable energy. So I guess in the broad sense, it all ties together. But we use those as initiatives to mass produce micro businesses.
Yeah, and the whole thing about it, what I've liked about the work that you've been doing the whole time that I've known you is that you really do, just like Emerald Planet, and that's why we match together so well. It's this intersect between the environment and economy.
Yeah.
And you're really living it. It's not you're just talking about it, you're actually doing it. But going to this National Grassroots Initiative, Grassroots Green, right? You've added that. This is kind of a new twist. Where did that come from, and how is that expanding what you're doing in your outreach? Because you're looking at small rural communities, but you're really looking at the inner city as far as a engine for development.
Yeah, well, there's always been a grassroots movement, but when you have little seedlings, you really don't want to, talk about it too much. But we really have quite fallow fields now. And when I started off, it was more, I thought we were just I spent about 30 times on Capitol Hill. And I figured that they would love my wisdom and stuff, but nobody on the left or right really cared. And so we moved to the governors and then to the mayors, and it's really taken off. Even beyond the mayors, we look at distressed inner city communities and distressed rural communities, and we get with the community leaders. Wow! And so that was a thrill for this evening. And
Keep going.
Okay. So anyway, we've really become kind of an urban and rural renewal outfit, and so people like being part of a movement, and that's how it's really taken off.
Yeah, and the initiatives, as far as grassroots initiatives, this is really, you have so many things that are going on, many different areas. So how do you actually balance all that so that these actually, really support and foster each other is really what it's all about. And is that where the initiatives part comes into this?
Yeah, we have initiatives and programs. We like to, the initiatives are broad-based, the programs are very specific. When we go into and again, we have about 18 city and state initiatives. Some we like Delaware and West Virginia are state. We have city initiatives, but most of them are neighborhood. For example, we're going to talk a little later on about our Jobonomics Washington, D.C. initiative, which is really focused on the 3 of the 8 poorest wards. And then in Chicago, we're focusing on 2 neighborhoods that are the most beleaguered. And so we go in and look at initiatives like in urban mining, and then we have a specific program. How do you do materials reclamation of end-of-life electronics?
I see.
And so urban.
So it's almost a cascade, but you're going down with all this. You're going to
at the top level, it's Jobonomics. Businesses create jobs, small businesses do. And then we move down into the different areas, and then down to specific programs. And we have skills-based training programs, and we have a way of financing the programs. But I like to start at the broad level because people want to go ready, fire, aim, and take off and start a program without really being able to mass produce or both jobs and micro businesses.
Well, the whole thing about it is sustainability. So how in all this work that you're doing, and I have a number of the books that you actually provide to anyone that wants it.
Yeah.
How do you sustain all of this in the community level? Because you're doing things in Washington, D.C., as example, Baltimore, Philadelphia. I mean, you're really in cities that have real challenges outside of Washington, D.C.
Yeah, and you talk about sustainability. It just so happened I just joined the board of the Institute for Sustainable Development. They're a strategic partner with us, just like EmeraldPlanet, a strategic partner with. It's our position, and the reason they wanted us to come on, me to come on the board and bring our movement is our vision of sustainability. It's the fact if you don't create the businesses and the jobs, then no community is sustainable. And if you go into these beleaguered inner city communities, beleaguered rural communities that have no jobs or have no businesses, they have no jobs. Okay, and consequently, we start off with the idea of mass producing micro businesses in the areas that we think there's going to be in the future.
So what you're doing then is you're actually looking at creating the businesses and the jobs, and then you figure out, well, how are we going to have all the people to fill these? Because some of these communities that you're looking at, I know some of those, and they are almost people just moved out. And so what you're doing is providing the jobs, and green jobs specifically, and then people start gravitating to that because they actually have employment opportunities.
Yeah, we have a different approach to economic development. I don't know if you have the slide on that, but you can bring it up. The traditional economic development, as you look at the slide, is you got a ribbon cutting event. You know, they're thinking about land and real estate, money equals economic development. We look at community, workforce, small business, and as a way to get to economic development. For example, I go in the inner city of Baltimore, Chicago, or Detroit, or Washington D.C., and I'm talking about the inner city parts that are high crime
Ward
rates.
7, Ward 8.
Yeah, high crime rates. You know, I usually get an escort. You know, when they go in, I get one. They give me one just to keep me so I can. But I guess for the audience, the simplest way to think about it, in these beleaguered inner city communities, rural or urban, the chances of you getting $100 million business is about zero. Okay, and so this Amazon phenomenon for the Second World War, 200 communities spent about 50 to 100 million bucks a piece to wow them down. It's never going to go into these beleaguered communities, and so that's what the economic development approach tends to be. The politicians, the mayors and stuff, all say, "Hey, I want to have some big deal because I'm going to get," and so their economic development guys are kind of forced to doing it, even though they know they're trained to do bottoms up. So we go in there and work with community leaders and say, first of all, think rather than 100 million, think about 500, $200,000 a year businesses.
And that would be all locally based because you're not having to outsource the jobs.
Right, and so we create the micro businesses in the inner cities that are anchored to the inner cities. Because too often in the inner cities, what happens, somebody gets successful, they move out to the burbs. You get places like Baltimore that we had an initiative, and we're still working on that, but the leadership there has decided, well, they're going to use HUD Section 8. That means HUD Section 8 is used the vouchers for rental assistance, so they're moving anybody that's got, moxie or a high IQ, they're moving them out and moving them to the burbs. You know, what I want to do is reverse Section 8 and move the people in the burbs, the poor people in the burbs, into the inner city. Now people say, well, what poor people in the burbs want to come in the inner city? Well, the poorest, the smartest people on the planet that are in the burbs are college graduates, okay, with large loans, student loans, and half of these times you can go into the inner cities, and these young kids are much more socially conscious and diversity conscious. They would love to have these kind of jobs, and they can bring that kind of talent now into the inner cities and help these jobs and help the locals to increase the brain DNA, so to speak, in the inner city. So that's what we're really about.
We have these 4 communities. You got Chicago, Buffalo, West Virginia as a state, and certain areas there in Baltimore. So you have this kind of engine, if you will.
Yeah.
You put it in these areas, and then what you're doing is then you take the jobs and whatever's going there, the assets, and model it to there. Is that what it
we've
is?
been dubbed the donut hole guys.
Okay.
And you can see on the slide the donut holes. And
right.
you can see in Baltimore, in West Baltimore, it's about 10 grand for household income, and 10 miles away, it's almost 200 grand. And it's throughout all of those different cities in those counties. Now, that's household income. So they can't live on that, so what do? They go to the illicit economy, they go to welfare, they go to the barter economy to try to make that up. So when we go in the inner cities, our 3 demographics that we really look at is the crime element, and because they're the most entrepreneurial guys, 3 of our dozen city initiatives led by formerly incarcerated guys, and they're hot to trot. They know the people because about 30% of a lot of these communities are ex-cons, and then you add another 20% being gang members. And so about half of the male population is involved in an entrepreneurial illicit activity. And just like the old mafia movies, I wore black for that today, and the mafia movies, they would say, "Oh, hey, Sam, we're going to go legal. We're going to get out of this stuff." And so the pitch is, if I can help you start a 200,000, 300,000 micro business, would you be willing to give up the illicit side? And the answer is always yes.
Yeah.
The other demographic we look at is women heads of households, and we'll talk about that in the next segment.
Yeah. Anyway, what do you see for the growth? You got 10 seconds.
High.
Oh, high growth. Okay. Chuck Vollmer, glad to always have you here. Jobonomics, National Grassroots Movement. Very fascinating how we're moving into the inner city or the rural areas, creating new jobs as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.
This is the story of a boy who is very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. It made him feel uncomfortable. One day, he found out he had something called autism. His family got him help, and slowly, he learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies.
Selfie, nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's put a ride home.
Being a dad is an adventure full of special moments.
A cruise?
Surprise!
Unexpected moments.
I got this.
And even awkward moments.
Okay, Dad, thank you.
But every moment you spend with your kids, even the smallest moments, can make the biggest impact on your child's life. So take a moment to be a dad today.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
We're back to the Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet as we're looking around the globe for what we call the best of the best. Those 1,000 best practices, technology, services, products, and the processes, of course, as we move through the 21st century. And the reason we're doing that is there's many challenges that we have as we add about 2 billion new people to the planet by 2050. Maybe there'll be a total of 12 to 13 billion on planet Earth by the end of the century. But how we're going to be able to take care of these people so they have an increased quality of life and not just to exist. And this has really been the life's work, most of his life anyway, of Chuck Vollmer. He is Charles D. Vollmer, goes by Chuck, author, founder of Jobonomics and the Jobonomics National Grassroots Movement. And we're always glad to have you here. Try to have you come back. It's kind of the state of the jobs, if you will, when we have you on the program. But looking at Jobonomics Washington, D.C., tell us a little bit why the name Jobonomics, and then how did you couple that to Washington, D.C., and why being in the nation's capital?
Yeah. Well, Jobonomics started off with my first book in 2010. I spent a lot of time on the Hill trying to get interest. Couldn't get a lot of interest. But since then, if the first book doesn't go, I've written 10 other ones. And so now our website gets about 30,000 hits, page views a month. And we've got about 18 city and state initiatives. And the latest one is Washington, D.C.
Now, looking at this you're called the donut guy, or the donut hole guy.
Right.
And we're looking at this map here of Washington, D.C., and I know all these areas intimately because I'm in and out of there a lot. These are areas that are definitely challenged, but they really are up and coming, and they're morphing and changing at a dramatic rate. Why these areas? Why these at what's called the east of the river?
Yeah, well, we call it east of the Anacostia +1. That's Ward 7, 8, and 5.
Right.
Back in 2011, I actually met with half of the city council members in Washington, but they had a traditional approach. They were looking for big deals, $100 million deals. And I said, no, we want to mass produce at the base of the pyramid. And they said, thank you very much. But what has changed now that as we got these other programs started, community leaders in downtown D.C. got wind of this. They found out what we're doing in Baltimore and Chicago and stuff. They said, we live local, why don't you come down? And I said, what I need is community leaders. And so we went down there, and we had a town hall meeting, and we put together a plan, and getting about 20 or 30 community leaders, and we're looking for about 200. Then we'll go to the city council and stuff. Now, what's happening is that in Ward 7 and 8, they're really pretty beleaguered. You can look at the this slide, and you can see the wide difference between the richest wards on the left in the green and the poorest wards. And the poorest wards, 4 or 5 times less income, much more higher crime. Head of households are women, moms and single grandmas with kids, about 70%. And so poverty rates are all down in that. So they are not burgeoning. They're actually sinking deeper in because they tend to work outside of the ward. A lot of places are food deserts inside the wards.
So the money is not actually getting back that they're even earning outside of the ward
I
itself.
don't know. But again, they look at the household income. I showed you that on the donut hole slide. It's down around 14. And within 20 miles, some of the household income is $200,000, north of $200,000 per household income. So that's a wide difference. And what they do is when you have such low household income, then you supplement it through either welfare or the illicit activities or barter economy, those types of things. And what they need is the businesses. What they say they need jobs, but jobs don't make jobs, businesses do.
Right. And that's what we're talking about here as far as this bottom up versus the top down.
Right.
And this is something you've been working on a long time. But looking at the Ward 7, 8, and you said 5 as well, how does this bottom up working in these areas that have such economic and educational disparities?
Now, Ward 5 is a little different. They got Catholic University there, and that's really an anchor tenant in there, and it's really helping them out. But there are a lot of pockets in Ward 5. But Ward 7 and 8, they're in pretty bad shape. And if that slide shows is that to go get an Amazon $100,000 or $100 million a year kind of facility in there, your chances are about zero. But I show in this slide to make $100,000 a year businesses, and that's minimum. The average wage of a self-employed person makes in DC makes $66,000. That's self-employed, and
that's a significant amount of money, even in Washington D.C.
Right.
In some of these wards.
And the nice thing about the wards, cost of living and the housing is a lot less in those wards than it is up in Bethesda or in Northern Virginia. So what we did is we put together a plan. How do you create 6,000 new jobs in 5 years? And they went, wow, I'm not talking a couple hundred jobs like the Amazon headquarters would be because it's all automated. Or if you go out to Ashburn, Virginia, you see miles and miles of data centers and maybe 2 or 3 cars parked out in front. Now we're talking about in the categories that we have, we start with a community-based business generator. How do you do skills-based training, certifications? And the people in the inner city, especially the poor people, can't afford to go to college and probably don't have it's a bridge too far. That's a generalized statement.
Right.
There are certain ones there. But we say, well, why don't you go after certifications? Go after a certification that take weeks or months and get you in a career within a year. Now, that appeals to them. Okay. Now, along with that is entrepreneur centers, digital academies, those types of things. And then we have some concrete, like our urban mining, which we will show you some little later. That picture that you're showing now is the community-based business generator, and essentially what that slide says, you canvass your whole community, say who wants a job. Yeah, just kind of like saying job fair. But to get into our program, you got to have a letter of recommendation from your church or your school or your sport coach or your parole officer. Okay, and then when we get
somebody that knows you and allows you into that system.
Then the next thing is you put them through a battery of aptitude and attitude tests to see what they're competent on. And then the first thing we do is we self-incorporate it. So if it's Chuck Inc. with just a GED, I'm probably not going to get a job because the existing businesses, big businesses, do not hire unemployed. What they do is they poach from each other, okay? And it's a smaller business that actually hire, and so the question is, in the minority community, the Black and Hispanic, they're both running about $1 trillion a year worth of GDP. They want to get on the other side of the cash register, not as a cashier, but as an owner. And so now we really emphasize this whole notion of non-employer businesses.
Now, I was going to ask you about that. That's a very peculiar name. Is this something that you coined yourself?
No, that is actually a Census Bureau term, and we're going to talk about that in the next segment in detail. But what you showed here is they're self-employed independent contractors, think about real estate agents, that type
And
of
there's
thing.
many of those that are traditional businesses, but you're adding more to that.
Right, yeah, and they're self-employed. There's the contingent workers, the gig workers, the on-demand workers, and you can go through the list and see that. Now, actually, a non-employer firm actually employs one person,
Right.
the owner. Now, I was in a meeting with the SBA, and they said, well, non-employers, they don't hire anybody. I said, no, they do. They got one. They got one employee, the owner. And actually, I've got figures, and we'll talk a little bit more. The average owner of a non-employer firm makes about $47,000 a year, where the average salaried workers makes about $45,000. Now,
So they're actually making a margin above what the average salary is.
yeah, and
then.
that's a bad number, artificial number, because 60% of these people are non-incorporated. There's self-proprietorship, and about half of those are working part-time just to top off their income. But if you look at the incorporated, S-corps, C-corps, LLCs, those type of things, their average income is about $150,000. Now these are
Now, that's
receipts.
real money in the inner
that's
city.
right. Now, if you're and what we're saying, if you're self-employed and you got 2 or 3 self-employed business, you can be an Uber driver in the afternoon. You could be an apps developer in the night, and in between you can be a bartender or that type of thing. And so you got 3 kind of business cards. So that's what this contingent workforce is. How do you wrap all these things together? The big beef is they say, oh, you're not, you're making 50 grand here, making 50, but you got benefits. Well, come on, give me a break. Most of the employee salary guys don't have benefits anymore, or they lose them when they get.
Right.
If you have the equivalent amount of salary or income revenue, then you got tax deductions. You can write off parts of your home, your business expense, all the stuff that you can't do as a salary employee. So it works out.
Now, what's a direct care program?
A direct care program is health care, social assistance, daycare, behavioral care, elderly care. The big one to me is...
And those are actually still in the community.
Right.
I mean, that's the driver of this whole thing, right?
Now, in the direct care, we really go after the single female householders that are empty nesters, whether moms or grandmoms. And what the idea is the fact that they have one really good skill. That's a maternal skill. And what's happening is that we're moving in the healthcare, social assistance, behavioral care world away from inpatient care to ambulatory care. That means that the hospitals can't take it, and we got a big drug. What's happening is this on-demand services, doctors on demand, nurses on demand, and what we need is an army of foot soldiers to go out and make contact. Like in behavioral care, we got mental illness, diabetes, opioid crisis, big deal. There's probably more. If we can get the people to go into the communities where that is, and they're equipped with a PDA, with an M-Health or an E-Health thing that is connected to the professionals that are in the inpatient care facilities.
This is the e-medicine they're
so
talking about.
I can create home-based business to provide in-home or remote care, and I can get them up and certified and trained within a very quick period of time. They self-incorporate and they provide those services.
Well, we're going to run out. Looking at the solar and renewable energy, that's a big area, and we got to be quick.
Yeah, the guy up there is our guy leading, Joe Cerubi. That's Joe Biden and President Obama. He set up the thing for New York and renewable energy, where he's working for us. We talked about how you create solar panel installation, weatherization kind of jobs. Next one is the urban mining. That's an example of our electronic waste. We can have it up and running within 12 months. In the state of Pennsylvania now, for Erie, Pennsylvania, has given us all their electronic waste. We can throw off $50 million of profit back in the community to do the workforce training.
And you're doing that because you're reinvesting back in the nonprofits within these communities.
And one of the biggest one here is the urban agriculture. You can either put it in a big warehouse or in a greenhouse thing, but in a lot of the places in these wards, you got to have a bulletproof one, and the one on the bottom left is our bulletproof greenhouse that the guy could, on a quarter-acre lot, can make about $50,000 a year, and it's called the Produce on Demand system.
That's absolutely incredible. What do you see for the growth and expansion of all this over the next 5, 10, or 15 years? And you got
big.
Quick. Big. Okay, one word. This is Charles, goes by Chuck D. Vollmer. Author, founder, Jobonomics National Grassroots Movement. Thank you for being with us as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.
Every time I hear the alarm bell go off in school, I think it's an air raid.
A lot of houses in our neighborhood have been destroyed. I like to close my ears and sing songs whenever the bombs come close.
I'm worried our new neighbors won't like us.
But I know it's all gonna be worth it. I just want my family to be safe. But these are not my words.
These are not my words.
These are not my words.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. One had some matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
How far would you go to protect the planet?
I want you to build an ark.
Here we go. Okay, that's good. Oh, okay. Ow!
Maybe there's another way.
People, the flood is imminent. Is it too much to ask for a little precipitation?
Go to fightglobalwarming.com to find out what you and your community can do to reduce global warming pollution.
When it comes to saving money,
What?
don't act like a baby.
Oh, it's like they're having their own little meeting.
This is so humiliating.
Be the boss
I'm the boss.
What the?
Power nap.
You were saying.
and make a budget.
Let's get to work.
Need a little help?
Stacy, read back the notes.
I can't read. What's it say?
Create a personalized savings plan and get other tools and tips
We can share.
You obviously didn't go to business school.
at feedthepig.org.
We're back to the Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you as we're looking for what we call the best of the best. How we're going to be able to take the best solutions, the best practices into urban areas and small rural communities to allow them to, in essence, generate their own incomes and to create their own businesses. And this is something that's been going on for quite some time now through a program called Jobonomics. It's a nationwide movement, Jobonomics National Grassroots Movement. And we have the author and founder sitting right beside me. This is Charles. He goes by Chuck D. Vollmer. And a former fighter pilot, so I always say, well, I'm going to stay out of the way. The guy can bomb and strafe me, so I'm going to stay right in the studio.
I got my sights lined up.
That's what I was afraid of. But anyway, going on to Jobonomics and moving into what you now call non-employer businesses. Why is that so important as we're moving to the new green economy? And how does this non-employer business and the green economy fit together? How do we do that?
Yeah, Jobonomics started off in about 2010. We've grown to an audience of about 30 million people. The website gets 30,000 page views a month, and we've got 11 books on the subject. So communities have come to us and said, hey, can you help revamp our community? So we take this vast amount of material and we work with the community leaders and design it. What has actually happened, we tended to be invited by the poorest of the poor communities of the rural or the inner cities. Chicago was the murder capital of the United States in 2016. We got an activity there. We have one in Washington, D.C., Chicago. So a lot of different places, but we work on the inner cities. And the ability for them to draw big businesses into the thing is remote because the big businesses tend to go to the higher resourced areas. So we focused on micro businesses, and we really emphasized this whole notion of be your own boss and non-employer businesses. And non-employer businesses is a federal term that really is for a single person owned business. Mm-hmm. Now it's kind of an oxymoron because they say that non-employers, they do employ one, the owner.
Right.
Okay.
And why this emphasis on be your own boss? I mean, it's all about jobs. You go to college, you get jobs. You finish your high school degree to get jobs. But you're saying is that you really don't need to be doing that. You need to think about all this differently. Is that how you're looking at these inner city
whether
areas?
you go to college or not, I'd say be your own boss, okay? Because 50% of the workforce now, 40% of the workforce is contingent work, and it's going to be much higher than we move in the digital economy. And so even the youngsters, the Generation Y, the millennials, and the screenagers, Generation Z, are not really interested in going in the corporate type of a world. They want their own business. And you can actually glue together a number of businesses, to you be an apps developer, bartender, Uber driver, and all, and have 3 or 4 business cards.
Now, why these young generations? Why do they want to have their own business? What's the attraction of that? And most of these come out of households where people were going to a 9-to-5 job or 10-hour, 12-hour a day job, but they were leaving, going to a job, and then coming back. But it
Because
seems
they
like
couldn't find a job.
there's a great change in the mentality, though. What's that change?
Well, I think this younger generation is much more social conscious, much more diversity conscious, and much more anti-establishment. Mm-hmm. And the anti-establishment is clear. If you just look at the election cycles and everything else that are going on, everybody's against something. So the idea is, now, when you get in the inner cities, and we're not talking about college grads, and even though I do this, recommend for the same, because a lot of college grads, people that go to college, 40% don't graduate, and 40% of the ones that graduate are underemployed anyway. So you might as well have your own business. So if you have your own business, you can go, this is the important, if you have your own business, you can go and interview as a business owner and get a 1099 as opposed to a W-2. Now, all these people say we're going to get a job, Monster.com, all these things that get on there, and the chances you get called back, especially if you're kind of in the middle of the pack, is really pretty remote. But if you could say, I've got my own business, I'm Sam with the GED versus Sam Inc., and I've got these certifications, and say, go ahead, try me if you like me. And then it's try me if you like both ways. If the employer likes you, they'll hire you. If you can build enough 1099 businesses, the task-oriented work, then you could have your own business. And that really appeals to the young people because they want to be independent, they want to be self-sufficiently independent, and they want to have time to enjoy their life and pursue their avocations. And this way you can do it. A couple of your business cards could be vocational business cards, and a couple of them could be avocation if you want to be a guitar player. And that's what the gig economy is all about.
Now, looking at this non-employer businesses and why it's so important, what are local governments and other nonprofits missing by not really looking at people who are in this whole economy?
You said in an earlier segment, what's a non-employer business? I'll give you 99 out of 100 mayors and almost 100% of the governors and 100% of the congressmen and senators have no idea what I'm talking about. Because the Census Bureau does not report on them. The Bureau-related statistics don't report on them. Mm-hmm. The reason they don't report is because the surveys, the household survey and the population survey, look at established business. We're still kind of in the 20th century. The only way that the special group within the Census Department, Census Bureau does it. If they've got they go to the IRS and get tax records, and that's how they figure it out. And they go through an algorithm and saying this, but they've calculated it's 24.8 million people right now. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, when you look at this number, you look at the total numbers. It's one of the largest employment sectors of the whole economy.
Yeah, this slide shows it's in second place. If you click on, we'll just go through a couple of them real quick here. They're across all the different organizations. That's the 25 million. Most of them are in the other services. Those are kind of the cats and dog services, but then professional, real estate, construction. Next slide. It's invisible because they don't count it.
Now, why don't we, as a national government and state governments, why don't they count this?
Because the way that the survey questions are designed. That sounds inane, but what is the biggest sector of our economy? 1/6. You've heard this for the last 10 years. Healthcare. Mm-hmm. But the U.S. government, believe it, doesn't have it doesn't really understand what the whole healthcare picture is, or what the energy economy is, or what the digital economy is, or what the contingent workforce is. These are all in the 20 to 50 to 100 million area. And they don't know what those are because all the survey questions are in these 13 vertical industries. 3 of them are in the goods sector, 7 of them are in the service providing industries, and the 11th is the government.
So what we've done then was we've taken almost like the 20th century, maybe even going back to the 19th century,
Right.
the 20th century for sure, and we just put that over in the 21st century, and we expect it to fit.
Right.
But it really doesn't fit.
No,
is that what you're saying?
It's vertical rather than horizontal. And the horizontal, healthcare, energy, so if small economic impact, they say it's only 3%. These guys are only doing 3% of the GDP or the receipts. Well, that 3% this is on the 2012, which is the last one. They were supposed to do a 2017. This is the group within the census, but they weren't funded, so they didn't do it. It's such a low priority, but it's about $1 trillion, and it's kind of in the middle of the pack. And we'll flip over a couple of other slides here. Growth rate in the last year, it grew about 60%. Not all the
60%.
Yeah, well, 61%. And you look at manufacturing and down towards the end, manufacturing was last decade was a minus 29%.
But that's something that's almost the myopic view of all the economic development is going to be in manufacturing. We want all those types of
that's
jobs.
right. And that's what I've written very lot about that is manufacturing, the anchor tenant of the U.S. economy is absolutely have. We need to reshore, but don't count it as a source of jobs. Because to be a next generation manufacturing, they're going to have to do it all robotics and artificial intelligence, and not only in the factory floor, but they're going to automate the blue collar or the white collar kind of guys in the supply chains, and what they don't automate, they're going to outsource to the contingent workforce.
So this is really what we're looking at here is that we're seeing the base for the future as far as where the jobs are going to be.
Yeah, well, the fact of the matter is if you own your own business, you can go out and interview for a job, or you can get them to subcontract you through a 1099. And employers like that idea of 1099. Like I just said, manufacturing is going to outsource to the contingent workers. So if I can do a job for the manufacturing, say I'm doing a software job, or I'm doing a truck driving job for them, then I can also do these other things. I could be a medical coder. I could do these other activities and do that. And what is nice about households, we would go ahead and then end up, everybody has S Corps, and you're going to have multiple business cards. These will be incorporated. It'd be important because you can get a lot of benefits. But then you start pulling your S Corps together in family limited partnerships.
And then also too, they would be trading with each other, so you're
Right,
getting
exactly.
the ripple effect as far and magnifying the long-term benefit.
And I go back to the point is if you're in a poor community, a rural community, or poor urban city, the ability of the big companies is going to come in, and all the politicians, I guarantee you, all the city council members, the mayors are looking for a big ribbon cutting because that's what gets them reelected. I don't know really.
Employee income. We're about running out of time.
Okay,
here.
the employee income is, this chart is a little complicated. Total number of receipts is 33 trillion, 90% go to the employers, 3%. But by the time you get down to the employee, the non-employer firms, the owner is making an average of 46, whereas 45 for them. So it's kind of a push. Now the reason that 46 is actually low because half maybe of the people are working part-time, okay, just to top off their income. If you look at the incorporated non-employer business, their average is about 150,000.
That's a significant amount of money. Now, the whole thing about this, how does the green economy fit into everything that we're talking about right here?
Because all the activities that we have in the things is either urban mining, urban agriculture, digital economy, direct care, they're all all digital underwritten, or network
Some way
centric.
to the internet.
And they're not burning fuels, they're all environmentally friendly, and they're all green.
No.
And it just happens to be that way because that's where I think things are going.
Yeah. Well, and it's obvious. You talk about the urban agriculture and all these new things. And then also, too, is that you take a city like Washington, D.C. I mean, they're just, stamping out as many individual homes with solar systems as they possibly can. And they're now going to the churches, all the schools, all that's being brought into this. Be your own boss. Where do you see this going over the next 5, 10, or 15 years?
Well, I think it's a change of mindset. And just given by the 30,000 page views we have and the number of initiatives that we have going, the people are starting to say, we got to do something different. And this seems to appeal to them, and we can show you through the data that the numbers are real.
Yeah, and you're taking it all the way down to the zip code, so you know exactly where the jobs are and the money is. This is Chuck Vollmer, Charles D. Vollmer of the Jobonomics National Grassroots, as we create the Emerald Planet.
Okay, so we drowned the fire, stirred it, drowned it again, and now just feel if it's cold.
Yeah.
Cool.
Smokey just gave me a bear hug.
I know. I already posted it.
I got a crick in my neck, limp in my step, cramping in my muscles every time I try to flex. But I don't wanna get up. Inside no more love. All that I could do was remember you. You know I usually stay now, but if you throw me love, I'll throw you some more.
It's a big responsibility.
Oh, it's huge. I know, it's huge.
And the salary.
Oh my god, yes. I mean, like, I was about to move in with my parents, and right before, so this saved me.
I really believe in you, you know.
Thank you. It's nice to hear that from someone.
These are cool. Did you, what did you?
We're back to the Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, welcome back to the Emerald Planet. We come to you on a week-to-week basis as we're looking around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices that are making a difference. Practices that actually are bringing solutions, solving problems at the same time to prepare a very solid base for the future. And that's what the friend sitting right beside me, Chuck D. Vollmer, is all about as far as Jobonomics and the Jobonomics National Grassroots Movement. And welcome back.
Thank you, Sam.
Always glad to have you. Looking at this Jobonomics right behind your head, tell us a little bit about what that actually means. And we're going to get into this new digital economy, which we know what that is, but it's expanding at a very rapid rate, and it is providing, jobs. No longer just for college graduates in the Silicon Valley, but in the inner city, small rural communities and all that. So we're going to leverage that, but Jobonomics.
Yeah, Jobonomics deals with the business of business job creation. That's economics plus jobs. Jobs don't create jobs, businesses do, so we focus on businesses. I've written about 11 books on economic, community, workforce, and business development that has gotten a lot of play. We've got a grassroots movement that's got an audience of at least 30 million people, and the website's going nuts with about 30,000 page views a month. So we're working in about 18 or so city and states. They've said, hey, take all this information. We can't digest it, and make it specific. And so we break it into different programs, and we wrote a book on the network technology revolution. And network technology revolution is a revolution. We had the internet technology revolution, but the network technology is something much different. And it is all about network effects and platform economy and stuff, and the digital economy and those type of things. And what has happened is a perfect storm of about 50 different technologies, from big data to robotics to artificial intelligence, Internet of Things. I can go through the whole list, which we do in the book. Every one of the technologies, where this is going, what impact 5G is going to have on jobs, those type of things. But we'll switch down to the next one that I think most people are interested in, is the digital economy. And I put the Seven Blind Men and the Elephant on there because everybody kind of said, well, what is a digital economy? You know, it is a lot of different things. So let me just kind of pop into that. We've got a book coming out soon. It really is about 8 communities. It starts off with the EM economy, the electronic commerce, mobile commerce. You think of Amazon. About 1/3 of all the Amazon people that sell on there are independent contractors. Okay, so
What's the percentage again?
About 30%. 1/3 of all their people on there are independent contractors that sell either services or goods. Everybody thinks of services, but the Amazon got a thing called Amazon Turk for task-oriented kind of work. You can go on there and say, hey, I got a task here or whatever. But you look at Tasker or Craigslist or any of those things, it's about selling that. You got the sharing economy, and sharing is, for example, automobile sharing or sharing a hotel room or sharing your tools. There's a lot of activities. The idea is in automobiles, you only use it 5% of the time, so that's where Uber and Airbnb or Uber and Lyft and stuff saying, well, you can use that in the sharing economy, and that's also part of the on-demand economy. But on-demand is just not the ride-sharing. It is doctors on demand. It is groceries on demand. You see that, and that requires a lot of foot soldiers to get it from the warehouse or the thing to the location. And also on-demand services. For example, doctors on demand need practitioners to go in to do kind of the due diligence and the triage, and then they're linked electronically to the doctor or nurse and stuff. We got the apps, bots economy. The bot is a chat box, Siri, Echo, that type of thing, and just the whole that platform economy I talked about a little bit, but the gig and contingent workforce, so there's a slide on that. Data-driven economy and the internet everything economy. But a guy named McKelvey, James McKelvey, has got a very interesting book, and I quote this all the time. Startup business is about 100 times easier than a traditional business startup. Why? I could do I can get be self-employed, a home-based business. I have a business card, a website, and I can sell across the world. Okay, I have all my back office stuff. I can do the legal, like LegalZoom.com. I can do PayPal for all the financing and stuff. So as long as you could get coached on how to start your own business and have a really potent business, especially if you got something to sell, a skill or a good. It's very easy to do it.
Now, looking at this, though, this is an amazing statistic. 10 times the number of innovators, in this whole digital economy. Right. Why is that? Is that because they're leveraging the internet, or it's more than that?
Because you and I are dinosaurs. We're not digital guys. We're analog to digital. Okay. We think in analog and we do digital. But these youngsters, I call them digital natives. That were born digital. And they have a hard time reading a book because they don't know how to do this. But they can do this, multitasking all day long. Okay, and those are the screenagers, so the digital natives. They're 18 to 23. Then you got the millennials, 24 to about 38, and then you got the Xers. But between the Y and the Z guys, the millennials and the screenagers, they really get this stuff, and they think digital, and they understand how this all works. And so now the platform economy is kind of what's driving it, and it's really between China and the United States, and they've got these major platform companies. In the United States, we have the FANGs: Facebook, Apple, Google, which is Alphabet, Netflix, and I got the FANGs, F-A-A-N-G. Right. But in China, they've got Alibaba, Tencent, JD.com, Baidu. And we got a big thing. Alabama just had a Singles Day sale, and they sold $1.4 trillion in one 24-hour period last week.
That's with a T.
Trillion. Trillion.
That's real money.
And it's 6 times that in yuan. And so you're looking at this as just the power of the digital economy is only about 15% of the traditional economy. But it will be equal to the traditional economy within the next 10 or 15 years at current growth rate.
Yeah, we have a guy from Herndon, Matthew, and he's asking about this between China and USA. you think of China, all manufacturing and, people going into, working in the small businesses and all that. What you're saying is they're actually vying with the United States as far as the digital economy. So he wants to know, how did China get there?
Yeah. Well,
and then how is the United States going to stay ahead of it, or is it going to stay ahead of it?
Well, first of all, the Chinese miracle manufacturing mill raised about 500 million out of poverty, and that was a manufacturing. And because of the trade deficit, we put a lot of money into that, and they took advantage. But we gave it to them.
We gave it to them.
Yeah, we gave it to them. So there's no bad here. But the Chinese know that they can't rely on the manufacturing, so they're going to the digital economy. Mm-hmm. And their public-private partnership is so far beyond the United States. It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. They're creating about 150 innovation centers that look like our Silicon Valley. Mm-hmm. They just Alibaba just did 1.4 trillion in Baidu and stuff like that.
And you said that was in one day.
One day.
That's
And
just
so,
amazing.
and what they're doing is they're moving. Alibaba has got Ant Financial, and Ant Financial is bigger in 10 years now. It's bigger than Goldman Sachs or J.P. Morgan. And what they do is they do micro business loans out in the rural communities. So the Chinese government has got the idea of raising another 500 million out of poverty in the rural areas through the digital economy and mainly e-commerce, of selling their goods and services and getting them to market and find those supply
Let's look
chains.
at this chart, though. I don't want to leave this yet. You look at the rest of Asia, and then you look at the United States, China, and then Europe. Why are there such small numbers in the rest, balance of Asia and in Europe?
I think what happened in American exceptionalism, if you let me use it, I'm trying to brag but not be bodacious about it, is that we are the innovators. Mm-hmm. Okay, it came out. The Chinese took that and grew their thing, and now they're not a copier anymore. They're deciding they want to get in charge of AI, all these network technology revolutions, in the biofields, in all those things. Now they're the innovators, and so they've caught up, and you can see it's actually equal, about 60 each thing. Now what's happening is the digital economy is going to move to more outsourcing. Now, we've talked about outsourcing overseas.
And this is going to create more new jobs?
Well, it's going to create a different kind of workforce.
Okay.
Okay, like 40%.
What's going to come out of that?
Shop right now, 60% of the American workers are full-time and 40% are contingent. Mm-hmm. And the contingent workers, these are part-timers, self-employed, independent contractors, day laborers and stuff. By 2030, it'll be 50-50. And if you go in the inner cities, the contingent workforce is almost like 90%. Okay, because the full-time jobs, standard jobs.
So this is that buffer zone in the inner city as far as where manufacturing or any kind of business wants to go, and these people move in and out of that economy then.
Well, again, the contingent workforce is the opposite of the standard worker. What we are trained to do is go to college, get a degree, get a job, get a better degree, get a better job, that type of thing. But that doesn't work anymore. People don't stay in one industry or get the gold watch after 20 years. It just doesn't work that anymore. And as manufacturing and the big companies are automating and downsizing their labor force, as we said in the earlier segment, manufacturing is coming back, but not in the terms of jobs. Because it'll be like the data centers. It'll be a big operation with a couple of cars parked out there.
Filling the donut holes. Let's talk about it, because we're just about out of time.
If you're in these donut holes, this is Chicago donut, that's Austin and Englewood, and you can see the difference between the household income and the rich just away. These people, if they want to make good income in those donut holes, they got to drive all the way up there. But again, if they don't have the skills, then we got to figure out how to mass produce jobs.
And what you're doing is you're using the power of this to put jobs into the donut hole, and not move the donut hole somewhere else.
No, and right now it's by creating micro businesses that are anchored in the donut hole, it brings up, for every 1% of startup businesses, increase in startup businesses, you lower the poverty rate by 2%. So
That's
2
fantastic.
to 1.
Absolutely run out of time, Chuck. What do you see filling the donut holes and this gig economy? Where's it going to go over the next 5, 10, and 15 years?
It's only going to increase.
And that's it?
That's it.
Okay, it's going to increase. This is the word of authority from Charles Chuck D. Vollmer, the author and founder of Jobonomics, Jobonomics National Grassroots Movement. Chuck, thank you for being with us. We do this every year, and coming out where the
Merry
jobs,
Christmas.
where they've been, and where the job's going to go in the future. Thank you for being with us as we look at this, because we're creating the new green economy as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.